I didn't get baptized because I believed. I got baptized because I was in love with a man, but not with Jehovah. So I started going to Kingdom Hall meetings. I knew the answers. I said the prayers. I smiled at the meetings. But deep down, I was pretending. Until Jehovah let everything fall apart so I could finally fall into his arms. Thank you to every subscriber and returning viewer of Henrietta Tale, Rise into Light. Your support means more than words can express. Every like, comment, and share helps us reach someone who might be struggling in silence. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for real life stories that heal, uplift, and glorify Jehovah. My name is Amaka, and this is the story of how I tried to fool God and how He loved me anyway. I was 24, working as a receptionist at a dental clinic when I met Michael. He had come in for a routine cleaning, but there was nothing routine about the way he looked at me. He was polite, respectful, and different. He didn't flirt like the others, didn't ask for my number. He asked for my name and used it like it meant something. Weeks passed, and he started visiting more often, sometimes without a dental appointment. I found out he was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and that only made him more intriguing. I grew up in a Christian home, but we weren't witnesses. We prayed before meals, went to church when we felt like it, and called it faith. But Michael, he lived differently. He didn't curse, he didn't lie, he dressed modestly and smiled like someone who had peace in places I didn't even know existed. I was smitten. I once asked him what he was looking for in a woman, and he said, "Someone who loves Jehovah more than she could ever love me." I laughed, then paused, then lied. "Well, that's me." He smiled, and I saw my future in his eyes. From that moment, I had a goal: become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, so I can be with Michael. The study began. Sister Grace was assigned to teach me, and I liked her too much. She was gentle but firm, wise but never judgmental. She asked questions that pierced my soul, but I learned fast, memorized scriptures, gave polished answers. I said the right things because I wanted the right result. I even started joining them in the ministry. I smiled at the doors, handed out tracts, quoted verses I didn't understand. Inside, I was still the same girl, with a script. Michael was proud of me. His family welcomed me. His congregation was warm, and when I told him I was ready for baptism, he cried. I've been praying for this, Amaka. So had I, except I wasn't praying to Jehovah. I was praying for Michael. Baptism day came. I wore white. Everyone cheered. The hall was packed. I walked into the water with dry eyes and a dry heart. And when I came out, soaked and smiling, I still felt empty. But I ignored it. I had done it. Now we could begin. The engagement came 3 months later. A simple ring, a tearful yes. But what should have been the beginning of joy was the beginning of conviction. The questions began creeping in. Why don't I feel what they feel when they sing? Why is prayer still so hard? Why do I avoid personal study unless someone's watching? I tried to drown the doubts in service and meetings and wedding planning. But you can't silence the spirit when Jehovah is calling. Everything unraveled on a Tuesday evening. Michael and I were reviewing our vows when I mentioned how glad I was. The study phase was over. He paused. "What do you mean?" I laughed nervously. "You know, like the hard part. Now it's just us, right?" He stared at me, confused and quiet. Then he asked a question I'll never forget. "Amaka, did you get baptized for Jehovah or for me?" I froze. Everything I had rehearsed, all the lies I told myself, collapsed in that moment. I tried to speak, to defend, to cover it with charm, but the truth was louder than my excuses, and the look on his face told me he knew. The engagement didn't end that night. It ended 3 days later. Michael said he couldn't build a spiritual house with a foundation of pretense. I respected that, and I hated him for it. But mostly, I hated myself. I stopped going to meetings, blocked Grace, ignored texts from the sisters. I packed my Bible in a drawer and told myself this was just a phase I'd get over. But that's not what Jehovah had in mind, because that was the beginning of his pursuit of me, not as Michael's future wife, but as his daughter. For the first time in my life, I wasn't pretending anymore. There was no wedding to prepare for, no audience to impress, no brother I had to win over, just me and Jehovah. And it was terrifying. Because when you've built your spiritual identity around someone else's expectations, starting over feels like learning how to walk again, clumsy, slow, and uncertain. But this time, I wasn't walking alone. My Asai began waking up early, before the world had a chance to get loud. Before Instagram, before emails, before anything else, I sat with my Bible and just listened. At first, the words were just words, but slowly they started speaking to me. One morning I came across Psalm 34:18. Jehovah is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. That verse felt written just for me. I was crushed in more ways than one, crushed by disappointment, crushed by guilt, crushed by the weight of knowing I had treated Jehovah like a means to an end. But that verse didn't say, he rejected the crushed. It said he saves them. And that is when the healing began. My Asai reached out to Grace, again. We started meeting at a quiet coffee shop every other week. Not to study, but just to talk. To wrestle with the real questions I had buried under performance and pretense. Why didn't Jehovah stop me before I made a mistake? What if I never feel spiritual enough? What if people in the congregation still judge me? Grace didn't give me sugar-coated answers. She didn't preach. She just listened and pointed me back to the scriptures. And one day she said something I'll never forget. Amaka, Jehovah doesn't just want your presence at meetings. He wants your heart, messy, unsure, questioning, broken as it is. That broke me in the best way, because for the first time, I realized I didn't have to be fixed to be accepted by Jehovah. I just had to be real. I returned to the Kingdom Hall after 8 months of being away. I didn't sit in the front row like I used to. I sat near the back, quiet, nervous, but when the first song started, tears filled my eyes. I wasn't crying because of regret. I was crying because the words finally meant something. Take my life and let it be. Always, only, all for thee. This time, I wasn't singing to impress anyone. I was singing to Jehovah. The brothers and sisters welcomed me gently, some with hugs, some with warm smiles. No one interrogated me. They didn't need to. Jehovah had already done the work on the inside. One of the elders came up to me afterward and said, "You were missed, but I think Jehovah just brought back a stronger version of you." That stuck with me, because I wasn't the good one anymore. I was the honest one, the surrendered one. Over the next few months, I restarted my personal study, not as a checklist, but as nourishment. I volunteered to help clean the hall, not because I had something to prove, but because it felt good to serve. And slowly, my joy came back. But this time, it wasn't wrapped in a relationship. It was rooted in Jehovah. And then one day, I ran into Michael. I was heading home from service when he walked into the same cafe I was sitting in. He saw me. I saw him. For a moment, it felt like the old days. Tense, nervous, uncertain. He smiled first. "You look peaceful," he said. And for the first time, I didn't flinch when I replied, "I am." We didn't talk about us. We talked about Jehovah, about how sometimes we all get it wrong before we finally get it right. And that's when I realized something. Michael wasn't the villain in my story. He was the mirror that forced me to see the cracks in my own soul. And Jehovah was the healer who gently put the pieces back together. That evening, I sat down and wrote in my journal, "This is what it means to have the truth, not memorized, but lived, not forced, but chosen, not borrowed from someone else, but owned from the heart." Maya didn't need a ring anymore. I didn't need to be the perfect sister. I just needed to stay close to Jehovah, because he was the one who stayed close to me, even when I walked away, even when I baptized myself in a lie, even when I turned my back in silence. He stayed. It's been 2 years since I came back, not just to the meetings, not just to the ministry, but to Jehovah. And every time someone asks me what changed, why I'm so different now, I tell them this, because this time I came for him. Maya than me. I used to think being close to Jehovah meant doing everything right. Perfect meeting attendance, perfect ministry hours, perfect prayers and watchtower answers. But now I know better. Now I know that Jehovah isn't asking for perfection. He's asking for sincerity. He's asking for a heart that's broken, but open, for prayers that are unsure, but real, for trust that doesn't always look confident, but keeps showing up anyway. Maya began giving student talks again, and the first time I stood behind that podium, my hands shook, but I wasn't nervous about the audience. I just kept thinking about how far I'd come. From faking my way through a baptism, to standing in front of my spiritual family, speaking from the heart, with no performance, just truth. One sister approached me, afterward, a teenager. She looked like someone I used to be, well dressed, polite, but hiding something in her eyes. She said, "I heard what happened between you and Michael. I just wanted to say, thank you for coming back. It gives me hope. Hope, not admiration, not praise, but hope. That's what I want my life to be. Now a living story that reminds others, even when your start is wrong, Jehovah can still write the ending right." Michael eventually got married to someone else, and no, that didn't break me. Because by the time I saw his wedding photos online, I had already given my heart to someone far more faithful. Jehovah was my beginning, and now he was my everything. My deep fly pioneer, part-time now, not because someone told me I should, but because it's become my joy. I love walking door to door with a Bible in hand, not as a role I'm playing, but as a woman who finally believes every word she speaks. And when I share my story with people who think it's too late for them, I watch hope bloom in their eyes. I tell them, you don't need to be perfect to come back to Jehovah. You just need to be honest enough to stop pretending, and brave enough to say, "Jehovah, I want to know you for real." Maya Deepful, one of the most life-changing verses for me, has been Luke 15:20, the prodigal son story. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with pity. He ran to him and hugged him and tenderly kissed him. That's how I see Jehovah now. Not distant, not demanding, but watching from the porch, waiting for my return. And when I did return, broken and messy and ashamed, he didn't lecture me. He ran to me. That's the Father I serve now. The Father I finally know. Not sometimes. I look back and wonder, what would happen if I never got baptized? If I had walked away before crossing that line? But you know what? I think Jehovah allowed it, not to punish me, but to awaken me, because I never would have discovered who he truly was, until I discovered who I truly wasn't. Maya Dipsi wasn't honest. I wasn't in love with him, but he was still in love with me. That's grace. That's mercy. That's Jehovah. So today, if you're listening to my voice and you feel far away, if you're showing up to meetings
just to make someone else happy. If you're carrying guilt because you've drifted, doubted, or even deceived, can I tell you something? Jehovah is not done with you, and he never will be. He's not counting how long you've been gone. He's not tallying your sins on a chalkboard. He's standing at the gate, looking for you, waiting for you, because it's not too late to start again. Not for your partner, not for your family, not for appearance, but for him, for Jehovah. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below. Let others know they're not alone. Like, share, and subscribe to Henrietta Tale. Rise into light for more real stories that glorify Jehovah and remind us that He's never far, even when we are. Stay faithful, stay humble, and always stay in Jehovah's love.